So wait. So if I were to meet this guy and I were to ask him, I go, what do you want to do? He's graduating. What do you want to do? He'd say,
have a lot of money.
So he wants to be rich with money. That's how he defines it.
Yes.
Because there's other ways to define rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling what your friend is really after is happiness.
Yeah. And he thinks rich is the only way to get it.
Yes. So this takes us, oh my gosh, this will take us off into a whole nother podcast topic. Welcome to the Live Truly Free podcast, where we provide fatherly guidance to entrepreneurs at any level of their journey. Hi, I'm George Black, and this is AJ. Are you ready for this week's adventure of building great companies and discovering the Live Truly Free lifestyle for entrepreneurs? Awesome. Let's get started.
So, George, I was talking with my friend the other day who's also about to graduate, and we were kind of talking about how we want our futures to go and mapping that out. And the one thing he kept saying was he wants to be rich. And that was pretty much the only objective or thing that he was trying to pursue. And so I wanted to bring this up to you because I'm sure you've experienced some people like this and might have some good advice that could be helpful.
How does he want to be rich? Does he know what he wants to do?
He hasn't put a dollar amount on it other than rich, but it's all tied into money.
So wait. So if I were to meet this guy and I were to ask him, I go, what do you want to do? He's graduating. What do you want to do? He'd say,
have a lot of money.
So he wants to be rich with money. That's how he defines it.
Yes.
Because there's other ways to define rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could be rich in relationships. You could be rich in the work you do. It could be very fulfilling, that sort of thing. But that's not what he's after.
No, he's just after the money.
Okay.
Really, all he cares about is how many commas are in the bank account. And I know what he's thinking of with this monetary rich. It's not uncommon. Like, he's definitely not the only person in the bank.
Right. There might be a few of you guys out there, right, that are like, yeah, I want to be rich too.
Yeah. And so it made me think, like, why is this such a common desire? Like, why do so many people just have this like singular focus on being rich? Yeah,
that's I remember. So this was a few years ago, and I was speaking at a student conference, entrepreneur conference, and this student came up to me. We were talking later, and he had heard my talk on living out of your passions and using that to come up with your strategies and things like that. And he said, well, my passion is to be rich. And I'm like, I don't think that's your passion. And we had this big discussion around all of that. And so I think it is very common. I think we live in a country that promotes that. So what I think that's about for a lot of people is we equate wealth, monetary wealth, with happiness.
Yeah. And that's kind of just how we're trained. Like, everyone who's on TV or everyone you see of prominence of celebrity status, they all got nice cars and they wearing new clothes all the time. You never see them in the same outfit, and it's all designer stuff.
And they always look happy.
Yes, because they always put on that big fake smile because they're like flexing their things to everybody, and they're like, "Oh yes, I'm so happy." But
yeah, you'll see it in all the commercials. They're always the beer commercials. They're just having the time of their life.
Mm-hmm. But they never show the moment where they go back.
They're in the rehab unit.
Yeah, they don't show that, or after they leave the red carpet event and they go back into their room and they get to the bathroom and look themselves in the mirror by themselves. They don't ever capture that moment of what they're feeling.
Well, yeah, and that's, never believe anything on TV. Well, except this YouTube video, right? I mean, we're legit, but everybody else. Yeah. Now, this is a fascinating thing in America, because I have a feeling what your friend is really after is happiness.
Yeah. And he thinks rich is the only way to get it.
Yeah. So why did he stop at money? I mean, why didn't he go deeper in himself? And I think, so this takes us, oh my gosh, this will take us off into a whole nother podcast topic that we'll save for another time. But we're trained with the swipe generation, instant, we can find out anything in a moment, that sort of thing. our attention spans are like nanoseconds.
Yeah.
We want you to watch this whole video or listen to this whole podcast. If you've got a 20-minute drive, you will, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
And then you pair that also with a culture that's very focused on material things. So everyone thinks that happiness is this combination of getting money quickly so you can get a lot of the things you want quickly.
Right.
And that just doesn't seem like a fulfilling mission to me. And I want to know from your experience, what is it like? Because I'm sure you've met people like this before. What is it like for those people who all they pursue in their life is being rich with money?
Yeah, that's I've seen a number of different situations. I've helped people create wealth through their companies and create jobs and have great benefits like that. But I've also seen the problems with it. For example, I think I haven't come up with a good way or seen a good way of how to pass wealth to the next generation.
Yeah, because you watch shows like Succession or The Crown. It seems like those generations down the line, when they are just born with an abundance of money, they don't end up very good people.
No, it's very, very complicated. And how much do you give them? That sort of thing. How much do they work for it? They've never had to do what the predecessor did. It's just, I've just not seen a good way, to handle that. And I think if you do any kind of study on it, you'll see there's no great answer for it. So that's one situation. Another one is that there's something weird that happens with money. And it's like, and I've got specific people I can think of where they've achieved great wealth. I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. I don't even know what that would be like. And kind of happy that I don't know what it's like, frankly, now. I did want that. I mean, it was like, the line from Fiddler on the Roof in the song If I Were a Rich Man, where he says, would it upset some vast eternal plan if you had made me a wealthy man? It's like, come on, God,
Yeah.
But the thing is that they achieve, say $300 million, and then they're going like, I wonder if I can double that.
Yeah.
They get 600. I'm like, when's enough?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting you bring that up, because I think that's just like inherent in all of us. We all follow that kind of riddle, like, yeah, why can't I have $100 million? Like, and to me, I definitely would say I do want to be rich, right? But I don't think that's not my primary motivation. It's like, I want to be doing things I like doing, and then hopefully being rich comes with that, because being rich does seem pretty nice. But at the end of the day, like you were kind of talking about, it's like, how rich is enough, right? Because I don't want to be in that position where it's like, oh, I have $100 million, but I'm not happy because because the guy across the street, he has $200 million.
Right.
Like, I want just to be rich enough to satisfy the needs that I like to do, or the fun that I like to partake in. But I don't want it to be like this comparison that steals all my happiness away from me.
Right. And so we don't want to create a wrong impression here. We're not against, having wealth or anything like that. We're not saying, oh, it's better to be poor. We're not saying that either. There is some sort of a place, and I think what I'm hearing you say is like your defined standard of living.
Yeah.
And so what is that defined standard of living for you? And live into that, but don't sacrifice the things that are really your passions.
Exactly.
And I think like with your friend, he thinks, or like the student I was talking about for sure, is he thought his passions was pursuing wealth. He goes, that's what I want to be. My passion is to be a rich person, a rich man. And it was funny because with him, I did see him the next day after we had this discussion the evening before, and he came back and he goes, I have started to realize I do have some passions that I want to pursue that are more important than being rich.
Go figure.
Yeah. And he started telling me what those were. And the thing was, he goes like, I still want to be rich. And so I think what we're wondering here, is it a passion? Can being rich be a passion like this student thought? Or is it a goal? Or like maybe your friend, it's a goal? This is...
Yeah, to him, I feel like he probably is almost exactly like that student you talked to.
Mm-hmm.
Where he would probably argue with you up front, yes, being rich is my passion. It's what I want to do. This is like everything my being is telling me to be. And then he'd go back to his dorm room for that night and then come back to you the next day and be like, yeah, maybe there are some other things that I like to do, if he actually took the time to seriously reflect on it.
Okay, so as you're saying all this, I'm thinking a couple of things. So one of the things AJ and I decided at the outset of this podcast was there's a lot of YouTube channels out there that are all about how to, turn $1 into $1 million and, get rich and real estate, crypto. You don't hear much on crypto right now, but there's all these schemes and marketing and sales and things like that. And they show great lifestyles. And these channels are getting millions of views a day. Mm-hmm. And we decided that's not the kind of topics we want to get into.
Yeah.
And I would point out that if it did work, then if millions and millions of people are watching these channels, wouldn't there be millions and millions of millionaires? I don't know that there's been a rise in GDP because of all these videos,
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, so you have these people getting millions of views, telling people how to be millionaires, and then those million people who watch it, they don't realize that all the other millions of people who watched it, they also aren't becoming millionaires from whatever that video says. And I think a lot, like, the appeal to my friend and to all those people watching that show is like, or that video is like, if I become a millionaire, if I have millions of dollars, then I'll be able to do whatever I want and I'll be free. And we just did that episode on living truly free and what's it all about. And ironically, it has really nothing to do with money at all.
Yeah, that episode where we talk about what Live Truly Free is, and we'll reference that in the show notes so you guys can check it out. Yeah, the word free has nothing to do with money. You don't need to go collect a bunch of money to then go do things you want to do. There's ways to do things that don't require money. And I think it goes back to joy and happiness.
Yeah. And you could almost say it's like free from money, where it's like you're living into the truest version of yourself, regardless of the monetary situation. Like you talked about how you chose to make a little bit less money so that you could be a better father to your kids.
Right.
And being a better father to your kids was ultimately fulfilling to you, but your kids didn't pay you to raise them.
Right.
You didn't become rich off of that, but at the same time you were living truly free and you were living a fulfilling life. Yeah.
And so let me tie back to a thought I was saying a minute ago, where this was the design of this channel and this podcast is exactly what we're talking about. So it's not absolutely, you've got to have a successful business to be able to support your life and your family and that sort of thing. And if you don't, it's a problem. And you're going to be wrapped around that and it's going to be stressful. At the same token, it's not the end all.
Yeah. It's like once you make ends meet, it's more, obviously you want to be doing things that are sourced in your passions to make ends meet. But if those passions aren't making you make ends meet, you're going to have to divert away from
Right. And so we do talk about that, how to monetize your passions or select certain passions you might be able to monetize. There's other passions. Just enjoy them. They're going to be hobbies.
Yeah.
I think with your friend, the question really is, what would be his passions?
Yeah, I actually, despite being his friend for a pretty long time now, I don't know what those would be. like, I think he definitely has to do some introspection to figure out what he really wants to do. Because he came up with me playing basketball, but I don't know if he has the same desire to want to like get into coaching it. Um, but I guess that just prompts a bigger question, like generally, because this is something he's going to have to figure it out. I can't figure it out for him on this podcast.
Right.
But more generally, it's like, what do those people who have that singular focus on being money rich, what do they do when this is all they focused on for 10 years or 20 years or however long they've been fixated on just becoming rich? They watch this episode and they're like, oh, being rich won't make me happy.
Yeah.
How do they figure out what will?
Right. So in my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur, we start with focus your passions. But we don't assume you know those passions. And actually, it's not the surface passions. We actually want to find who you really are, who you were born with, the passions you were born with, that sort of thing. And so the book is a step-by-step through like your passions as a kid, you know, and that'll look like dreams. So like, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah.
And you know, I wanted to be like Indiana Jones. And well, what's that about? You want to go be an archaeologist? Well, no, probably not. But it probably suggests, no, but I want adventure in my life.
Yeah.
And I hear this from entrepreneurs, and you know, they go, well, an entrepreneurial life is, we talk about this as far as being adventurous and risky.
Yeah.
You know, and the Indiana Jones guys that wanted to be Indiana Jones, being an entrepreneur isn't a lot different. I'm not sure about snakes, but you know, so that's where I would start to source, and you got to dig deep into who you are because it's been forgotten.
Yeah, it's been forgotten and blinded by this one thing you thought you wanted to be.
There's a great line in the movie The Legend of Bagger Vance, and Bagger says this: it gets buried under all the wouldas and couldas and shouldas, and over time we forget.
That's a really good line, because like, so for the people who do go and buy the book, there's some great exercises in there to help you uncover these passions. But,
sage advice to apply.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. But the way he puts that is like, because those exercises bring you back to that time when you were a kid and you were thinking about your dreams and desires and all that. But over time, as you become an adult, you start thinking, like for me, example, I could be an NBA player, but I'm not that tall and I'm not willing to put in all the time.
Okay,
necessary.
so we're going to do a little more Bagger Vance here because it really ties in to what we're talking about. And it gets buried, but he goes, and he calls it Authentic Swing. And it's a golf movie, okay? So, but the line is, he goes, inside each and every one of us is one true authentic swing. Mm-hmm. Something we were born with.
Yeah.
Something that can't be taught. It's got to be remembered. And so it can't be learned. It's got to be remembered. And I'm kind of butchering the quote just a little bit. Pardon on that. But you get the point. And I think that's for most of us.
Yeah.
The world just sweeps over us, and we're in this quick, shallow existence now, no attention span, literally nanoseconds, and we forget.
Yeah.
So let's go somewhere. In other words, what if your friend discovers he wants to coach basketball, high school basketball?
Then the likelihood of him being rich is very low.
Right. Now, he may go, well, I've got plans to become a college basketball coach or maybe an NBA basketball coach, and I can make more money. But you can see real quickly what's your passion.
Yeah.
It's the basketball, not the making money.
Yeah. And then those passions should inform what you're doing, what you want your future to look like. Who the person you want to become should all be sourced in your passions. And depending on what those passions are, if it's to be a basketball coach, being rich probably is not going to be the byproduct of that. It could be, like you were saying, if you become a D1 or an NBA coach, those guys make millions of dollars. But if you just love the coaching part of it, why do you need to be rich? Because your day-to-day is going to be coaching basketball.
And what does rich look like? Okay, so you've got a house on 3 continents.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Now I got to go to all these houses. Or I've got all these companies I own, which I've got to keep up with. And I have to have all these attorneys and stock people and accountants and all these people working for me to keep up with everything. And I just want to coach basketball.
Yeah. And that what you were just saying pulls you back to the live truly free thing, where it's like, yeah, money does not mean you're living truly free. Money is just creating more responsibilities that you're going to have to manage and that are going to pull you away from exactly what you wanted to do.
So, AJ, what do you think? Is being money rich, as we're calling it, is that a passion or a goal?
I would first say it's certainly not a passion.
Okay.
Like, it's kind of this innate desire that's in everybody because it's what we see on TV and all of that. But no one, like, in their day-to-day, what they want to do, being a rich person just isn't a passion. I would say it's probably a goal. We could argue whether it's a good or a bad goal. Mm-hmm. And that kind of depends on what your passions are.
Yeah, I would say it can be a byproduct of your passions.
Yeah.
Or maybe, and I'm a little queasy about it being a goal, because what happens with wealth is your possessions begin to possess you.
Yeah.
It's a slow creep. But over time, you haven't had as much time as I have, you accumulate stuff, you buy stuff, and you don't get rid of stuff. And it piles up. And I'm not a wealthy man like some of these people are at all. I mean, I don't even compare, But it's amazing the kind of things I've accumulated.
Yeah.
And it's like they own me, I don't own them. And so trying to get rid of stuff or whatever. The point is that I can't even imagine, I mean, these people have houses all over the place.
Billions of dollars.
And they might get to them once every few years,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to have a castle in Scotland. Mm-hmm. Or a villa in Tuscany.
Yeah.
But when am I going to have time to go mess with that?
Yeah, exactly. I agree with pretty much everything you just said there. I do think being rich can be a goal, but if it is your goal, you have to be very mindful of it so that it doesn't become to possess you. And it's really only a goal because it's sourced in your passions and your strategies, and those are in alignment with that goal. Yeah.
No, I think that's right. Yeah, I think this has been a fascinating conversation because of like what your friend's struggling with, because I think everybody does. I mean, I think who doesn't want to be rich? I mean, right? And as we've been talking about this, I'm just remembering and thinking about this, that we live in the richest country in the world, in the United States, by just about any measure. Mm-hmm. And yet, we have the highest deaths from drug overdose rate in the world. And it's like, so is being rich everything it's cut out to be? So for more conversations like this, check out this video. I know you're going to love it. And until next time, may you live truly free.